We are recording with Mr. Michael Fairclough, who Dr. McCullough put us in touch. How do you know Dr. McCullough? Or where are my manners? Please introduce yourself, and then we'll get into how do you know Dr. McCullough.
So I'm Mike Fairclough, and yeah, Dr. McCullough. So I first came across him when he was interviewed by Joe Rogan, and I watched that interview. And admittedly, like a lot of the stuff he was saying, I didn't. It kind of like didn't understand the technicalities of a lot of things he was saying, but the general sort of cut and thrust of it, I was really into, and yeah, I think it was great of Joe to have had him on the show. And I know there was a lot of kickback and stuff. But anyway, after that point, started following him on Twitter, and then about maybe 2.5 months ago or something, I was interviewed by the Epoch Times about my stance regarding the vaccination of children against COVID-19, because basically I'm a head teacher or a principal of a school in the UK, and but I'm to date the only school leader in the UK to speak out against the vaccination of children against COVID-19, which is a thing which really surprises me because it's in our job description to safeguard children against harm. But anyway, the Epoch Times ran a piece where I was just saying what my main concerns about the vaccines are, which are just it's four things which I always say, and it's one: children are at extremely low risk of serious illness from COVID. The COVID vaccines pose known very serious risks. There is no long-term safety data for the vaccines, and a person can still catch and spread COVID when vaccinated against COVID-19, and that's it. And then, of course, at the end, therefore, in my opinion, the risks from the vaccines outweigh any possible benefits, and it's that simple equation. And anyway, the Epoch Times ran this piece, and Dr. McCullough endorsed that on Twitter, and was basically just very kind of generous about his approval of my stance. And anyway, I had just been on a ban from Twitter for a few, like it was like my third ban for saying exactly those 4 points, and I came back on the same day as this, the Epoch Times ran this piece. When I was always allowed back onto Twitter, I'd always post exactly the thing that I'd got kicked off for, and that was for two reasons. One, because I just wanted to test it out to see if it was, was it a person monitoring me? Was it an algorithm or whatever? So and there was also this bit of a kind of rebelliousness, which is like exactly that,
Yeah.
just like, no, I'm going to just do it because it doesn't really matter. I've always said it's, you've got to speak your mind,
Yeah.
make a stand, and don't really, of course, worry about the consequences, but don't allow the
Don't
consequences
cower.
to inhibit you. So anyway, so then, so that piece came out. I'd just been allowed back on. Put this one post on about with those four statements. Dr. McCullough simultaneously endorsed my stance from his Twitter account, and then I was permanently banned. So anyway, so that was that. I thought, wow, okay, so that's I've tested that one out then, and I know that that's what the outcome is. And then a friend on Facebook who I've not met, but who we follow each other on Facebook. She said, "Oh, I've got a friend who knows Peter McCullough, and I think." Well, anyway, some other people who I can't remember who they were, but anyway, but it was Dr. McCullough who particularly stuck in my mind, and she said, "Would you like me to try and like connect you?" And I said, "Yeah, absolutely, that'd be brilliant." And then I had an invitation from him to join the email group and the COVID-19 sort of recovery team, and that's it. That's how I know. And he very generously put me in touch with you, and then a couple of other people who we'll be talking to in the future as well. But yeah, that's the background to that.
Dr. McCullough is he's the slayer of social media accounts. My episode with him was what got me permanently banned from YouTube, August 2021. Again, he was telling people, he wasn't even railing against the vaccines. He was just telling people of all age groups, because my audience ranges from like 10 years old to 90. He was like, you should be taking turmeric, quercetin, vitamin D, and zinc, and you can get it at Walmart. That was it. I clipped that from a video and actually uploaded it separate from the podcast, because it was only like 30 seconds and I know it would have been viewed more. So I just said, take your vitamins. That was the title of the video. Permanent ban hammer from YouTube.
And that was it. That was
it. That was, I have the screenshot of the email. That was the one that, take your vitamins.
And what, bearing in mind, that will have been
third strike
stated on YouTube many times, and there'll be videos which say much more controversial things than that.
Oh yeah.
What was it? Was it the fact that it was Dr. McCullough, or because of your profile, or the mixture of the two things?
Well, I'd say strike one, strike two, and strike three, which occurred in like May 2021 for interviewing Dr. Hodkinson, talking about VAERS data, microclotting, and myocarditis. And then suspension one for having on Dr. McCullough, suspension two for having on Dr. Malone, and then suspension three for having on McCullough to talk about vitamins. So I think I was earmarked for the death sentence, but that was the final one. That one clip, take your vitamins, like 30 seconds long.
Yeah.
But it's the same thing like you said. It's just, maybe it's just like me still, I don't know, I'm 32, but still acting like a a bratty 15-year-old, just like, don't tell me what to do. But it's also like, I just can't sit with myself. If I'm like, there's just some excuse for a person sitting behind a computer somewhere, just, no guts to confront you. They just hide behind misinformation and they ban you. To me, that's no different than like a school bully. Like, stand up to the bully. I remember when my older brother's much stronger than me. I remember when I was little, my dad was like, stop running from like fights. So finally one day my older brother hit me. I hit him back. Now I was an idiot, and I did it when we were on a boat in the middle of the lake. And my dad was like, don't do it when you have nowhere to run to. And I got beat up. But like, there is like a whole, like, even if you're gonna get, punched in the face, like, don't take it. Don't take it. Don't be stupid. I'm not saying start, yelling at a cop at a traffic stop at 2 a.m. But just something like, you're gonna get banned. Not even the whole, as an American, not even the whole free speech, like, 17 cent, just like in general. Like, what? There's this thing out there. This guy's the premier expert in the world on it, and it's causing actual damage, especially to kids. Yeah, I'm not gonna shut up.
No, and I think so. I think there's several things there. There's one is, obviously, if one has self-respect, then you will stand up for yourself and stand up for others. It's about, so for example, like I have had my grave concerns regarding me speaking out, because I have been investigated twice by my employer for literally just for that particular statement, and complaints which came from campaign groups who seek to get professionals in the education system and the UK's health service removed for what they would regard as spreading medical misinformation. So, being like, saying things about masks or lockdowns, or in fact, pretty much anything that's now coming to light to have been ineffective during the pandemic. These people made complaints about me. I was investigated, and I realised that being the only school leader in the UK to be speaking out, that does put me in a vulnerable position. And then I think about, okay, so if I were to be removed from my job, then I wouldn't have wouldn't be bringing in an income. I've got children, I've got a wife, I've got a house, all of those things. So I do have those concerns, but there's a sense of liberation actually, and empowerment that comes with doing the right thing and standing up and going, actually, I'm going to fight for the greater good. I'm going to fight for kids, and I'm going to do the right thing. And the sense of empowerment and liberation, which I think would eclipse completely, first of all, the fear, but also that sense of, if I were to do nothing at all, that sense of deep regret and probably shame in myself for not having the balls to do something. So it's not that I've not had those concerns, but then there's other things where it's like, okay, if I get kicked off social media, then that's the way it goes. But I think it's so important for people to be speaking out. And there's something that happened, it's happened over the last 2 days in the UK, where PayPal has been demonetizing groups and platforms who have been either talking about, mainly protecting children actually. So I'll give you an example. There's a parenting group called Us for Them, which is co-founded by somebody called Molly Kingsley and Liz Cole. And it's a campaign group for children that's been running since 2020. And early on, they were speaking out about the closure of schools, because we've been told consistently by all of the different scientists and even the opposing views, that children are at extremely low risk of serious illness from COVID. So therefore, they don't really need to be excluded from school, et cetera, et cetera. And this campaign group, which comprises of some really clever and really determined people, started to point out, well, there will be a knock-on effect on children's academic progress, their personal and social development, their speech and language skills, particularly if they're wearing masks. They listed all of the harms, and they were demonized for it back in 2020. Interestingly, now, even in mainstream media, they're admitting, oh yes, now in retrospect, children took the biggest hit out of all of the different cohorts during the pandemic. There's been a delay in speech and language. Oh, children's, their facial recognition isn't as good. Oh, there's a lot, all of the things which were just blindingly obvious in 2020, and which now people are describing as if they're revelations. But anyway, this group became really big, and I worked with Molly, supporting her a couple of times for the Telegraph. She's a great journalist, actually. She writes for the Telegraph and the Mail and Spectator, etc. And then contributed to a fabulous book that her and Liz have written, called The Children's Inquiry, which goes into very great detail about all of the different things which happened to children over the pandemic, and how unscientific and unethical and unnecessary that was. And then anyway, so that's the backstory. And then to today, PayPal closed down the Us for Them, this group's account. Now, this is where they receive donations, and it's what makes it kind of like work as an operator, operable. And they said it was for violating the values and community guidelines of PayPal. Yesterday, a publication called The Daily Skeptic was also demonetized for the same reason. And they've spoken out about lockdowns, etc., since 2020, and also Lockdown Skeptics and the lawyer group Law or Fiction, all of them in the last 48 hours. And I know most of the people involved in them as well. So we've been talking about this stuff on WhatsApp, etc. They have been, in the same way that the Canadian truckers had their bank accounts frozen, the same thing is happening with these people in the UK with these groups. So the censorship is very real, and it needs to desperately be discussed. I think these guys have got quite a few connections in the UK Parliament, so I know it's going to be coming to the floor of Parliament. And there was a piece in the Telegraph this morning as well about this. So it has hit mainstream media, but it's the sort of thing that is just the beginning of what could, in my opinion, and I said this today in an Epoch Times interview, that this just smacks of the Chinese Communist Party social credit system.
Oh yeah.
So if you say what they want you to say, no problem, you get a rewarded pat on the back. If you are a dissenting voice or just offer another narrative or even question the official narrative, then you'll be punished. And that's what's happening now.
Do you have any Jewish? What is it? Do you have any Juden under your floorboards? Do you have any Jewish people in your ancestry? Oh, that'll never happen again.
Well, exactly. There's that brilliant clip of Jordan Peterson. It was in 2019 when
you
he
think you wouldn't be a Nazi.
Yeah, it's great, isn't it? It's so good. And the way that he describes all of the different kind of sort of groups of those who just remain silent, which actually there are so many people who remain silent, aren't there? Who I'm sure you get messages from people who say, oh yeah, well done for what you're doing. You know, I totally support you. Just to let you know, I can't say anything because ... I'll lose my job or I'll be deplatformed, whatever. So you've got those who are silent. You've got the ones who are active participants. So they actually believe in it all, and they want to support it. Which is, of course, there is that camp, and that's an interesting one because for the people and so I work within a school and across the county. I'm also an author as well, so I've got meet lots of different people, and I do come across very genuine, very heart-centered people who are very pro the vaccine, very pro the masks, and all of that kind of thing. But if they are and I've been able to connect with people like that when they are the kind of people who accept me for my different opinion. And I think it's totally possible to be in that space where you're not in that kind of antagonistic, confrontational kind of vibe of like, oh, I'm unvaccinated, you're vaccinated. There's nonsense. That's actually what tyranny wants, is to divide and rule, but to connect with people. So those people are kind of I don't really have a problem with, because we've been trained from an early age to trust the government, trust mainstream media, trust the health service. It seems inconceivable that there could be some kind of collusion in a way which is damaging and harmful to the people. It seems like, well, that's impossible. Why would that possibly happen? And then I think you can put in that within that sort of mass formation psychosis aspect where, well, if everyone else is doing this, then it must be fine. So there's that kind of mentality. Then you have those who do bad things and know exactly what they're doing. And Jordan Peterson talks about that third group of people, who are actually actively doing the things which are negative and harmful. And then the final bit is, he said, and perhaps you may have even enjoyed it. You'll never know. And it's interesting because I kind of always wanted to be the sort of person who would be, to kind of do what I'm doing, but didn't actually know that I would be until I was in that position. Because it's not like I'm not fearful of some things, or I haven't been flaky at times, or I'm not perfect in all aspects of my life. But it's like, oh, cool. It turns out actually I was that person, that sort of in that minority who's able to do something. But we do, I feel, very much so need to expand now and to wake even more people up, particularly as there seems to be a speeding up now in terms of, well, like the example I just gave you, this mission creep towards a social credit style system.
You do always have that question of like, would I stand up to it? And yeah, I can say I have. And all of the drawbacks, You don't
Yeah.
care nothing. I don't care about it, you don't care about a criticism from a comment on YouTube. I don't care. Yeah, no,
Mm,
the social engineering of family members or friends when they
mm.
reach out to you and they're like, "Dude, you're a conspiracy nut. You're a medical." I got into medical school out of college in 2013. But dude, I used to have so much respect. No, that is the one. Those are the ones that hurt the most. But you have to remove those, and you have to go. Am I like? What do I really want? If you truly believe you're doing the right thing, but your actions are like, and we should throw them into camps, that's not the right thing. But
Mm,
if you objectively go, what do I really want? Like you have to examine yourself to make sure that you're not in your own bubble. And you have to go, I want people to have do you want people to not get the vaccine? No, I think if you want to go get it, go get 10. I don't care.
mm,
Okay. Well, then I'm erring on the side of let's just leave each other alone, live and let live. And you do have to plant your feet. There are drawbacks. I've been investigated by much bigger than an employer. I've been investigated by a government agency for podcasts. It's terrifying. It's to sit here and be like, you got to stand strong in your beliefs. You're lying through your teeth if you're
mm,
not
mm,
quaking in your boots. But you have to stand tall. You're not doing anything. You got to stand tall in your convictions. It's always important to remember that life does end
yeah.
whether it's at 32 or 132.
Mm.
The game does end, so just don't forget that. But there's also and I always have to be careful because it is such a tired analogy. You're Hitler. George Bush is Hitler. Obama's Hitler. Donald Trump is Hitler. Like, okay. But you also have to one of my favorite books is Masters of Death, about the Einsatzgruppen by the Mobile Death Squads, the predecessors to the death camps by Richard Rhodes, and then a book I'm reading right now called The KL by Nicholas Foshman about the concentration camp system. And I've talked about this extensively on 30 podcasts on here, so I won't bore the people. But what it boils down to is you have to remember is like there were absolutely some just demons at the
Mm,
top, and there were some demon henchmen. There were a lot of guys that you can literally go back and read their journals in their writing. You can find whatever the most generic German name is, Hans and Dieter. You can see them writing to each other going like, "I can't take it anymore. I can't shoot any more kids. I can't shoot any more women." And the other
uh,
will be like, "I can't do it either, but you have to remember, if we don't do it, these kids will grow up to be soldiers and then our kids will have to do it. So remember your son when you're doing this and how much you love your son." And you're like, "You're right. You're right. I love." And then you go, "Oh my God, they they thought they were protecting their." It's one thing to go, "It's an evil Nazi, yeah, it's like a demon with red wings," and you go, "Yeah, of course they're gonna do evil." And then you read about it and you go, "These guys were vomiting after. A lot of them would commit suicide. They'd drink themselves blind, and then they would console each other. They'd go like, 'This isn't the front lines. I can't fight. We're not fighting grown men.'" And they go, "No, this is much harder. We have to assassinate. We have to shoot these kids and these women in the back of the head." It was called Genitzschusen, where you shoot them in the neck, and we have to pack them like sardines. Because if you don't have the balls to do it, you're going to leave it to your son. And what man would want a son to inherit a worse world? And they go, "You're right. And you're reading this and you're going, am I really feeling sympathy for the Nazis?" And then if you say it out loud, you can't say it. And I'm dumb enough to say it on camera, and that's going to be clipped, like I'm sure it's been before, right? But you go and read this, and then that to me is what always makes the hair on my neck stand up, because you go, there are so many people that are going. There are some people that just they revel in the power. They hate their lives, and now they can rat on people for having too many people over during quarantine or for spreading medical misinformation. There are those people, and those are sad, pathetic souls. And I think their existence alone is punishment. But man, there are people that are going, "We're doing it for his grandma. I like Tommy, and I don't want to see him go to jail, but I'm going to report him. I'm going to report Mike, and it hurts me to do this, but it's either I hurt him or I hurt my grandma." And then you're going, "Oh God." And that's even worse because the
but
person that
so
has it.
so I would so for me that's where the application of logic
Yes.
is so essential. So
Are they heart centered or are
so
they
so
evil?
so so the again, it's like with the vaccines, it's like it's not a difficult equation,
Hmm.
particularly with children, to state again, that children are at extremely low risk of serious illness from COVID. Now, that's universally accepted. There are known very serious risks from the vaccines. That's no longer a conspiracy. It's well documented. There's no long-term safety data, unlike all other childhood vaccines, and you can still catch COVID. I don't know anyone now who's actually vaccinated who hasn't since got COVID, and of course spread it. So it's not a wild conclusion to reach to say that the risks outweigh the benefits. So I would, and then going back to your comparison with the kind of Nazi guys, I feel like if that was me, I would be thinking, well, if this is about protecting my children, I'll I'll take them somewhere else, like bugger off somewhere else. I'm not, I can't do evil things to other people. It's not in my nature. I had a situation today actually where I won't be able to give too much detail, but I was hit with a baseball bat, and in a sort of altercation, which I was able to de-escalate, and then to communicate with the individual involved and just say, I don't really get why somebody would want to deliberately inflict pain on another person. Of course I'll upset people and do the wrong thing, and when that happens, I want to be able to like hold my hands up and say, yeah, I'm so sorry, that's not what I didn't mean to do that. But I don't actually get any pleasure out of causing harm or discomfort or anything to anyone else. And this individual who I was communicating with, I feel took that in. We'll see how it kind of sort of unfolds now. But the point being is, like, if I were in that Nazi Germany situation, I think I would allow my gut, my physicality be my moral compass and navigate the way. If you feel sick doing something and you feel like you want to kind of like you can't take it anymore, it's probably a good sign that you're not on the right path. Do you know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
That's why when you say, oh, I trust my gut, or you sort of like, I feel it in my bones. The body is a great sort of barometer for what's going on. So I think it's about applying logic to any sort of situation, as well as your intuition, and then arriving at a point where it's like, okay, what am I going to do? And there have been loads of times where I've questioned myself as well during this period. I've had lots of times because of the skepticism of others. So for example, my sister, one of my sisters contacted me a few months ago, and we hadn't spoken for a year, not because we don't love each other, it's just like, that's just how it flows with this relationship. And she said to me, yeah, how you doing? I was like, yeah, cool, like really great, good to hear from you. And she said, are you all right? And I was like, yeah. And she said, yeah, are you like a sort of like extremist or something? I was like, what do you mean? And then she said, well, I just like noticed that on Facebook, all of your posts like are about the vaccine for children, etc., etc. And to be honest with you, initially I felt kind of a bit offended. I didn't argue with her. I said to her, well, look, I'm a head teacher. I'm an author. I'm a speaker. I've got a family, and I tried to like give them this more rounded sort of version of myself than she'd been sort of receiving through Facebook. But then I did then have to come away from that conversation and look at my Facebook feed and go, actually, fair enough. If you didn't have any interaction with me,
you didn't know.
I look like I'm a bit obsessed, and it's like fair play,
So
I think it's good to just like,
I've had that.
Even when you get the sort of criticism from people, just think, okay, where are they coming from? Now, I didn't like then stop doing that, but I did just think, yeah, fair enough if people
see where they're coming from.
but
Yeah.
you know,
Oh, I've had
but,
that. I've had
yeah,
that where you got to go. I examine it every day. I meditate every day. But one of the things I always examine, I'm like, what am I doing? Where am I? Like, am I in an echo chamber? And then you got to
mm,
remember that, like, it's like if you ever had a conversation someone with someone in a car, and then the conversation kind of comes to a lull, but you keep thinking in your head, and then you go from one topic to another, and then you speak up. But by now you're wet. You guys were talking about winter, and now you mentioned like hockey, and they go, "What the hell are you talking about?" And you forget, oh wait, you're not in my head. So I have, good friends or, extended family members who, like, yeah, I've known them my whole life. But yeah, I kind of do see him maybe once a year. Maybe we chat once a year. And then the only portal they have into my life is they see my podcast.
yeah,
So I do a podcast for an hour, 2 hours a day. In 22 hours, I'm not doing that. And I'm doing tons of stuff. I'm reading other stuff. I'm going about my life. I have my own personal life, my own personal dramas.
mm,
But if someone sees that I've done 9 interviews with 9 doctors in 9 days about COVID vaccines, I've gotten those where like, hey man, you kind of seem to be going down a rabbit hole. And I'll be like, huh? What are you talking? And then like, oh no, 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 I'm not. And it's like, I'm not gonna stop interviewing, but I go, I get that. You don't see
yeah,
anything. You just see Dr. McCullough, Dr. Malone, Dr.
yeah,
Fareed. And
yeah.
I'm like, yeah, fair.
But then I
Fair.
think that's where, with the other individuals who you're interacting with, and actually it's the same for me as well. So I've tried to align myself with really reputable people who are journalists in the mainstream who have been on side and talking about these matters. Molly Kingsley, like probably the most notable example. Certain lawyers who are prominent on the scene with regards to all of this stuff. Business people who are really, really successful, TV people who I've either been on their shows or they are people who I've connected with and who are reputable. But so that I'm not just, because there's a lot of people in the kind of counter narrative who are great to chat to, but who, if you spent all of your time with them, then you could definitely go down a kind of rabbit hole, or certainly for me anyway. And I love that vibe. I love going off and like
Yeah.
massively crazy psychedelic sort of
Oh, that's the
vibe things.
best.
But yeah, totally.
It's
And I do, but it's like when I'm in a sort of public situation, it's important for me to be like on message rather than on some kind of metaphorical spaceship kind of
yeah.
going on.
Or
And I think with the caliber of the people who you speak to, and Dr. Malone, Dr. McCullough are perfect examples. Even if someone were to say, oh, well, I think you've kind of gone down a rabbit hole, you just have to list the credentials of
yeah.
those gentlemen to be able to say, well, like, can you match that? It's, no one can. So
Yeah.
I think it's important to align ourselves and ally ourselves to professional individuals who are who really broad. They don't even have to all necessarily agree on the detail, but certainly the broad strokes, we're all on the same page, which is like, okay, something's not right. And certainly with the vaccines, it needs serious assessment, and in some respects must be paused, and that's particularly true for the kids.
Yeah. And then it's like, and then like I have to be careful about my own, like, am I employing the appeal to authority fallacy? Like Dr. Malone is, he holds the patents, and Dr. McCullough is the most published cardiorenal physician. I have to make sure that I'm not hiding behind a wall of look how many publications they have. So I then have to go like one step further and be like, look at their credentials. That's really like the best I can do. And if they're wrong, then I don't know. But, I have tried to get Dr. Fauci on here. I've talked to his secretary, and she said no. And then when I pushed it further, it was like, if it was going to happen, it was going to be all pre-scripted and all. And I'm like, well, that's not how I do it. Like, that's just, and to me, I'm like, well, now I'm trying to give people a window on here that disagree with me. I'm not going to attack you. I'm not going to, I love Dr. McCullough, but I'm not going to sit here and do some ambush journalism. If Dr. Fauci wanted to come on here, I'd shut up and let him talk. But when they turn that down, and I'm like, well, okay, Dr. Freed, Dr. Nass, Dr. Merrick, Dr. Urso, Dr. Alabek, I've had on all these people. Like, how many credentials do you want? I mean, they're all the
Yeah.
top of the Dr. Um, I'm drawing a blank. Aditi. I'm forgetting the last name. The head of mRNA research at UCSF in San Francisco. Like, I don't. These are the. She worked on the Biden campaign. She's not even some like, and so it
Yeah,
is
this is the
Barkova.
thing. It's
Yeah,
like that group. They're the top of their field, not just nationally but internationally.
yeah. I don't know
So
where else to.
it's also coming to light now that, and I saw that great taking down of Fauci on. There was a Fox News clip with Senator
Ron Johnson or Rand
Ron Johnson.
Paul.
That's it. Absolutely phenomenal. Where he's showing him it's the senator from Kentucky, where he's showing him the clip of Fauci in 2004 praising natural
Natural
immunity.
immunity.
Yes,
The
that's
best.
all you
It's the
need.
best. Yeah.
And then the bloke's like, in response, he's like, well, that was just taken out of context, sort of thing. And it's like, and I have to say, Fauci totally sounds like a gangster as well. I don't know whether you feel that. He's totally could
I
be
didn't
out of
even
like
feel
The
it. Just look at them.
Sopranos or something. It's
You don't,
just dodgy as anything.
you don't even need to feel it. You can just look at the actual money trail, the amount of money he's involved in, and the kickbacks, and you control that much money, you get corrupt.
Yeah. And the
That,
fact that he won't even disclose whether there are any conflicts of interest, on the FDA and from his side and all. It's just unbelievable. But it's unraveling fast now. And
yeah,
I think there's so many people who, particularly as we've now seen the legacy of lockdowns, which is just catastrophic, really, with
yeah.
cost of living crisis, the energy crisis. I mean, unbelievable, let alone obviously the mental health crisis, spikes in suicides, etc. And it's not possible now to well, it's totally possible to deny that, but even within the mainstream media context, it's now being reported in a much more balanced way, at least.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it's there's going to be a kind of ramping up now as we move into the next season, particularly with autumn and winter. And there was a declaration that there was a fourth wave on its way in the
We are
UK.
on like the 8th or something.
Oh, it's just what, and but then of course we've also got this what's described as the biggest control group in history, i.e. the unvaccinated,
Yeah.
who are just like, well, look, I'm fine, I
I'm
feel
trucking.
great.
I'm good. I went to the gym today.
Yeah.
30
And
minutes of
it's
intense
becoming
workouts.
increasingly obvious now, isn't it? It's really, really coming very, very obvious. So
Yeah.
yeah, I think there's going to be a lot of change. And then I think there's also something within me as well, where I'm naturally an optimist, and during some of the most challenging points in my life in the past, I've had hope. I've had
I
optimism.
always stay hope. I have to.
Yeah.
I
Even when
have
it's
to.
really full power, it's like there's that one spark which is like, okay, I'm going to get through this, and the resilience that we spoke about at the beginning of our
Yeah.
conversation, that kind of standing up in the face of the fight, that fire is what sees you through things, and that will see us through this as a community, as nations, internationally, as humanity. I believe the human spirit will prevail and good will out. That's my genuine belief.
It's prevailed through. We're in a bad spot. It has prevailed through so many worse times over the last 10,000 years. It takes a
Yeah.
whole lot of ego to go, this is the time we lose.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. So I'm always reminded of my dad's dad, my paternal grandfather, fought in World War One. So I'm 50. My dad was 86 when he died, and that was quite a few years ago. And he had me quite late in life. And his father, so you can see that his father was alive like over 100 years ago, and he fought in the Battle of the Somme. So this is my dad's dad, and I grew up with stories of from my father, because he died by the time I was born. But I think he saw me when I was born, but then I don't have any memory of him.
Sure.
And he would fight in a kilt because he was in the Cameron Highlanders. And so he, like the Cameron Highlanders as a battalion, they would go over the top of the trenches, and it's mad, but there'd be a guy at the front of the line playing the bagpipes,
Jesus.
walking into enemy fire. They're all brightly coloured as well, with their red kilts and all the rest of it. And they're just like, bayonets on, and they were hardcore. And all of his brothers died, many of his friends. He survived, and that's still considered a really hardcore, legendary group of soldiers. And I think about that stuff, or my own father, who grew up in World War II in Manchester, in the city of Manchester, and he was 10 years old at the time, and from an Irish immigrant family, so he wasn't evacuated. Other people would be, but the Irish tended to keep their kids with them. So he would listen to the bombs dropping and the anti-aircraft fire, and all of this kind of stuff. And these guys like lived through 2 world wars, and so for me, when I find myself kind of going, "Oh, poor me," it's like this. I just think, my God, it's like,
shut up.
Yeah, shut up. Just get a grip.
Just shut
exactly up. That. It's just like, come on, man. It's like, get a grip.
Yeah.
So, and at the same time, there are certain things that I do personally to build my resilience and to stay on top of my game. So, for example, I wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning, and then have a coffee with my wife, and then I go off and I go to the gym, and I make sure I do a really good workout before I go to school at 7:30 in the morning. So I've already achieved something. I've already gone through that pain barrier. When I first wake up, I almost always
never want to go.
God, really don't want to do it. And then I push myself, and that kind of moving out of the comfort zone, I feel like that really builds my resilience, and it sets me up for the other challenges throughout the day.
Oh, absolutely. I've been doing that. I did it all throughout college. I do it now. First thing I do, you wake up to an alarm, warm bed. I'm under like 9 blankets, the fan's on, the blinds are every morning. And I'm like, every morning I decide, I'm like, today's the day I quit the podcast. I'm not getting out of bed. But I get up, I make my bed, I go to the gym, do push-ups, pull-ups, I do ab workouts, weights, 10, 15 minutes on the treadmill, come back, shower, meditate. And it's just those little things where you learn to push through it and push through it and push through it. And about like the spark of positivity, like you have to keep that for your own mental health. Like you just, even against all, it's one thing when you kind of see a path to victory and you're like, we can do it. But then there's like another level of, like, when I was pre-med in college and I'd be studying for organic chemistry, I'd be like, I know I can figure this out. Like, the test is 3 days away, 2 days away. I'd be like, I know I can do this. I've done this before. And then you eventually you crack it and you get the A and you're like, I got it. And then the next test rolls around and you're drawing on your past experiences and you're going, stick with it. You're going to find a way. And then there are times that like you can't find it. In 2014, my older brother committed suicide. And I went through several years of just drug abuse and like I gained almost 70 pounds, unemployed, hated myself. Girlfriend broke up with me. I don't blame her. I had to move home with my parents, lost all my friends. Those are the days where you're going, I would still tell myself, I'd go, tomorrow's going to be better. And I know sometimes I couldn't even believe I said it. I'd be like, the nerve you have to tell yourself that it's going to be better. And I didn't even believe it would be better. But the very act of just saying it to myself was like one last middle finger to the universe. Like, I'm just going to say it. You can be like you can be putting the noose around my neck and I'll still say like, it's a sunny day, because it's just my like one last middle finger.
Yeah.
And then a day goes by and a week goes by and a year goes by and 5 years goes by and every day is worse than the last. But then 7 years goes by, 8 years go by. I've lost the weight. I'm doing my own podcast for a living. I'm my own boss. Happier than I've ever been.
When did you emerge? When did you feel like you were from that space of, that kind of like quite broken but still determined space to the one where you're like, okay, right, I'm something's clicked. How long ago? So 2014 was the tragedy.
2014 was, I moved home two years later. So I had 2 years of just spiraling downwards on my own. And then I lived at home from August 2016. Still like 3 more years of spiraling downwards. Not spiraling downwards, but still just broken. I started the podcast in December 2019, and I would say I was probably like, I don't know, it was probably like 7, 8 months into it when I start to actually go, "Oh, wait, I think this can work." It's like, I think this can actually, and it was just like, and then I didn't have to lie to myself anymore. And then I moved out in April 2021, and every day, every week, every month since then, more and more so, I'm like, "Oh, this is working. It is working." And now you draw on that experience where it's not even the OChem. You go, "I was broken, and I had to lie to myself that tomorrow was gonna be better." And for like 3,000, not for like a 1,500 straight days, every day was worse than the last. Like, yeah,
Mm.
well over 1,500. And then it actually started to get better because I just didn't give up. And sometimes not giving up just means that like I lived another day. And so when I get to where I am now, I go, "Oh, wait, just keep pushing. Just keep pushing."
Yeah.
And even if it doesn't work and it really is the end of the world, what am I gonna just quit? What? Like, to me, it's like when the doctor hits your leg with the little rubber thing, and you have this reflex.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's a part of me that it's almost involuntary. I'm like, "What do
Yeah.
you mean?" I mean, we could literally be in a global dictatorship where we all have, like, microchips in our forehead, and I'd still be going, "No, there's a way out of this. There's a way out of this."
100%.
And then maybe there wasn't a way, but what am I gonna do? Go to my grave going, "Well, I guess we lost."
Yeah.
No, that's what they
I
want.
think it comes down to that sort of animal instinct as well, because we're essentially that's what we are. We're animals
Survival.
with animal instinct, and so that drive and will to survive is hardwired into our DNA. I think it's been eroded in some people through sort of the layers of culture, and there's certainly been a kind of disempowering narrative over the last few years. So, for example, I think the actually the overemphasis on mental health in the sense of particularly with anxiety. So talking about anxiety as if, and by the way, I'm talking about the media talking about this, schools talking about it, government talking about it. The idea that somehow life is imperfect because you are feeling anxious, and somehow you can alleviate your anxiety for good and not feel anxiety is a ridiculous notion, because
Insanity.
it's an integral part of daily life to feel anxious. It's natural. It's actually it's a tool
It's a
which is
benefit.
necessary for us to kind of move on and all the rest of it. And I think there's the way that our sort of convenience led contemporary society and culture has sort of like softened people up to have an expectation that they should be happy all of the time without necessarily having to do anything.
Yeah.
And that's just stupid, because it's like, you kind of got to be comfortable with times of where you're not feeling great, and where you 100% like on a daily basis feeling anxious about things, but then build the things which are the antidotes to that. So I
Yes.
always talk about the antidote to anxiety being resilience. Well, how do you build resilience? You build resilience by moving out of your comfort zone. So,
Uh-huh.
for instance, like your example of, well, both of ours, but yours sounds even more hardcore, definitely more hardcore than mine. Your workout in the morning, you're flooding your body with serotonin and
Dopamine,
dopamine
oxytocin,
and
endorphins.
oxytocin,
Yeah.
the whole thing, all of this incredible stuff, which is, which can mask pain. It induces more of a sense of uh,
Pride,
love,
courage.
connection, creativity, basically all of the stuff. But you've got to, you have to be the one who's like, oh, bloody hell, I've got to get up now. Right,
Yeah.
I'm going to do it. But and you do it and you achieve it. And that is the antidote to
Yeah.
anxiety, rather than going, oh, let me just look at my problems and nothing but my problems and hope by doing that they'll go
It'll go
away. It
away.
doesn't work.
What? Yeah. Yeah, no, it's and I'm someone that's also suffered, chronic anxiety right after like the first year after my brother died. And then I had a concussion earlier this year, and I just like knocked a couple screws loose and was having panic attacks. Like, I get that. That stuff's debilitating.
Yeah,
That, you do need help for that. There's nothing wrong with,
yeah,
temporarily going on medication. When you can't get out of bed because you're hyperventilating, that's not good. That being said, to get rid of anxiety is absurd. I get
yeah,
anxiety, I get anxiety, and really up until like a month ago, and I was like, I'm not losing weight fast enough. And it's like, well, maybe that one night a week where you get beer and pizza, maybe that's pulling you back. And finally, after a year of doing it every Thursday, I was like, maybe I should stop eating. And if I don't want to stop eating, that's fine. But just accept that when you sit up out of bed and you feel rolls on your stomach,
yeah,
that's what you get. And so
yeah,
finally I
yeah,
was like, it's time to start eating a lot of spinach. And like, I've lost like 20 pounds in a month. And now like that anxiety is going away. But other
yeah,
little things like, I am getting a little anxious about, am I moving? Am I getting a new lease? Well, why is that? Well, I haven't really put away any money. Okay, start shaving off a little bit, start learning how to save, start learning, and then you put away $100 and you're like, well, that's nothing. And then a year goes by and you've put away 1,000 or 10,000. And you're like, okay, stepping out of the comfort zone with podcasts. I'm going to talk about this, or I'm going to talk about that, or expose yourself in certain. I'm going to talk about. I can now nonchalantly, not that I don't miss him every day, but I can talk about my brother very matter of factly. But that took a long time of you step, and then once you start to get comfortable, you get comfortable with your workout. The first day of the month, I always add one more rep to whatever workout I'm doing. I add 5 more push-ups. I add 1 more pull-up, and I add 5 seconds more of ab workouts. And then for 2 weeks, I'm like, this sucks. This sucks. And then now, like the 22nd, I love the last like week of the month because I've built up a resilience to my workout. And I go in there, I just crank it out. I'm like, whatever. And then the first of the month will come around and I'll go, oh no, but you keep stepping out of your comfort zone, step
yeah.
out of your
Because that's
comfort
how you
zone.
grow. That's how you
Yes.
grow. That
And
is what it's all about.
you just build a bigger and bigger shield, and it's
Yeah,
never gonna go away. And like, that's okay. But I think much like anxiety, if you just stare at it and hope it goes away, you're gonna get weaker and weaker, and it's gonna become
100%.
worse and worse. And you have
Totally.
to extrapolate that to
Yeah,
society.
yeah,
If you are not, if you owe me $1 and I'm charging you whatever interest rate, and you can't pay me today, you can't stop buying a $5 coffee, and you can't have the discipline to pay me today. Well, tomorrow you owe me $1.10. And then every day forward, and finally, like a year from now, you're gonna owe me like $200. If you
mm,
can't pay the dollar today, what in God's name makes you think you're gonna pay 10% more tomorrow? And so we don't like the options presented to us. Social ostracization, being an outcast, being the extremist, talking about vaccines. If you can't live with that discomfort, what in God's name makes you
yeah,
think that you're gonna be the man of World War I or World War? I know I can't do World War II, so I'm
yeah.
talking up now.
Precisely.
I'm
Yeah,
talking up now.
absolutely. And that's the key thing. And it's like, the things we've just described are mild compared to future, with the exception, obviously, of the suicide of your brother, though that's extremely hardcore. But there will be more punches to roll with in the
Yeah,
future, won't there? And that's why we've got to be
yeah.
ready. And, I think it's possible to be open-hearted and gentle and kind and soft and empathetic and strong at the same time. It's not about being impenetrable or not
Alpha male. Yeah.
there's a kind of a strength in vulnerability, but it's about like, there's that thing I think of realizing that there isn't anyone else who's going to save you other than yourself, and realizing that,
Nobody
there's that
cares.
wonderful Hopi Indian saying, we are the ones we've been waiting for, that sense of empowerment of like, it's actually all within me, and
Yeah.
as beings, as sort of spiritual cosmic beings, we're just like capable of absolutely anything, which is why I also feel like there's a great awakening as well at the moment. There's not just this sort of dystopian kind of rolling into some kind of like Orwellian future that we just have to battle against. I think it feels to me anyway within my life, and my wife feels the same as well, that there's a kind of there's a kind of heightened awareness
Mhm.
and a growth on a kind of spiritual level through all of this stuff as well. Not in a dogmatic or particularly religious way or anything like that, but it just feels like something's changing on a really big level. I speak to so many people who say, actually, this is a time of great opportunity.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
And again, you know, perhaps it's that default position that we both have of the optimism of like, you know, it's going to be great. It's going to be, it's like a Garden of Eden, but it's like, oh yeah, I believe in that. I've always felt that's going to be the sort of the end game.
Yeah. It's like, what was I going to say? I just draw a blank. Something about a time of great opportunity, a great, whatever. I forgot what it was. But there's also just, yeah, I don't know what it is, but it's just, I can't give in, and I can't, it kind of draws back to like, this species has been through so much worse, just so much worse. And not only that, when you only see X number of people speaking out now, and you're like, well, you know, a lot of people are using this as we're waking up, and some people are just marching towards the cliff. Another thing I look back at is do I really think that now we have the lowest number of people talking up than ever before in human history? There's probably the same percentage of people walking towards Nazi Germany or World War One or whatever, building the pyramids. There's always probably been a very small margin of people. And if that small margin has got us through the dark ages, World War One, World War Two, Cold War to here, why? I mean, just mathematically, statistically, why would it not work again? And yeah, so just go forward with it, and like just go for. And I do, and like I know I gotta let you go, but I was gonna say back to what you're saying earlier about, you know, trying to align with like respectful people and like accredited people and not go off on like the psychedelic conversations. I still just don't care, and we'll still have the psychedelic conversations on here. So I'm sure that's led it some detraction, because I will, without hesitating, go from interviewing Dr. Malone to having on a friend and being like, so do you think the aliens on the backside of the moon killed JFK? I don't care. I just,
and that's all cool. And that's, I dig that vibe 100%.
It's the funnest.
And certainly I would happily have that kind of discourse with you and enjoy it and offer things. But in order to reach the people who I'm trying to reach through my message, they are the people who are not conspiratorial. They are very trusting. They are, you know, very much into the official narrative, etc. And that's why I've had to break down the message to those 4 points that I've repeated earlier, and to keep it on message so that I don't lose those people. And it's interesting, I've just remembered actually, because the very first, it's quite funny actually, the very first complaint that was made about me, and it turned into investigation, there was a bit which said, oh, and he posts things about UFOs on Twitter, and it's because I love all of that stuff. But you know what? I then thought, right, I'm not going to do that now, because although I love that topic like immensely, I mean, and actually it's interesting because before the pandemic, there was so much cool stuff happening, like the Pentagon.
Summer 2020. It was all coming.
We've got like bits of like crashed aircraft. I mean,
not of this world.
Unbelievable cool stuff, and like pyramids in the sky and all this kind of thing. It's like, blimey, this is like awesome. And it got like watered down by COVID. It's like, and I remember it was quite funny because I remember saying to my, because it's very much in my experience a sort of guy thing, but I remember saying to my wife in the kitchen, I was like, when I saw that New York Times article about the, what was it?
They said craft like, not of this world.
Craft not of this. I was like, they got
it.
UFOs. And she was like, oh, I thought they already had them. And it was like such a brilliant sort of like a girl sort of comment to be like, I'm not that bothered about UFO. But are you still there?
Yeah. Did my camera just cut out?
Yeah, it did. Yeah, yeah,
You can still hear me?
yeah, yeah.
Weird.
So yeah, so that was in the original, but that wasn't like looked into because they weren't, that wasn't the main thing. It was the fact that I was being critical of the vaccines. But yeah, so but my point being that I've had to stay on message in order to reach the people who are not into kind of far out kind of theories and stuff, and who I might be able to bring on board. And that's actually been the case. And I've had parents approach me and say, "Oh, we've seen you on GB News," or like you're a piece. And I've made sure I've like anything I've done has been largely in the mainstream, like mainstream press and TV and things. And they've been able to say to me, "Yeah, we've thought about it, and we've come to the conclusion that we're not going to get our kids vaccinated against COVID." So I feel like it's been necessary to tailor my messaging in order to get the result that I've required.
I think there's still the little, I don't know why, like, the good camera shut off, but I to me, there's still that just, like, I guess, rebelliousness in me
Mm.
where I refused. I've interviewed Larry Holcomb, author of Presidents and UFOs, Dr. Lynn Katai, who personally witnessed the Phoenix Lights in 1996. I've had on a friend of Bob Lazar's. I can't get Bob
Oh,
Lazar. Ken Mason was one of his friends. I've had on Delta Force guys that worked at Area 51, and they talked about shit out there.
wow.
No, I love all this. Is right up my wheelhouse. And part of me is just like, maybe I shouldn't bring it up if I want to be taken more seriously. But in my mind, I'm like, if I give them an
Yeah,
inch,
but then
they're gonna.
also from the podcast perspective, it's like, people want to have a broad palette
Yeah,
of
you
different
don't just
things.
want COVID.
So
Yeah,
yeah, that's, I think, within your genre, it's necessary to have that because but that's, the listener wants to engage
yeah,
in all of that stuff and go deep and things. So
yeah,
that's, I think that's, I totally understand that.
yeah, yeah.
And in fact, I would love to be able to do it. If I do have a I'm at the same time as being a head teacher, I'm also an author. I've written 3 books, most recently one called Rewilding Childhood, and it's all about like essentially trying to just let children be free. So at my school we teach our kids to shoot. We've got 120 acres of land with like animals all over it, even though it's a built up council estate where the kids come from. They learn to light a fire, cook over an open
Oh yeah.
fire, forage for food, proper kind of vibe. And so my writing is kind of very much about that, but also the reasons for it. So I talk about resilience throughout my work. I talk about the gift of imagination,
Mm-hmm.
which is in such an integral part of childhood and something that gets dumbed down as adults get older. Risk taking and rebellion as kind of key themes, because all of those qualities, all of those traits are exactly the sorts of things which tyrannical governments
Hate.
don't want the people to have. If you're
Yes.
imaginative, you can imagine the future. Oh, right, I can see this going towards social credit system and then super control and this. No, you need an imagination to be able to project into the future like that. You need to be a risk taker like us to be able to go, okay, cool, I know it's going to be tricky, there's going to be some challenges, but I'm going to do it.
Let's do it.
There needs to be that element of gratitude so that you're able to also go, okay, things are tough, but there's also this beauty in my life, and that kind of feeds your soul and all the rest of it. Kids have all of this innately, and what adults do is they beat the hell out of them so that that disappears and they become disempowered adults who are so easy to control. So my going back to my point, what I want to do is, I am feeling like I'm ready to evolve out of the system at some point soon. I would love to do that. And in addition to writing books, one of the things that I really want to get into is podcasts. I'd
Oh,
love
dude,
to. I'd
do
love
it.
to do it. And my wife, she's called Sandeep Satara. She's a Punjabi Indian woman, really sexy, lovely, hardcore,
Oh
cool
yeah.
lady. And she's built this temple at the bottom of our garden. It's this oak framed, massive. It's kind of it's inspired by beehives, so it's hexagonal and
Hell yeah.
hexagonal doors that open, a wood burner and everything. And we're thinking we'll have these sort of talks in
Do
this
it.
space
Oh,
with the
do
fire in
it.
the background and stuff.
Do
So
it.
yeah, and then I can talk about UFOs to my heart's delight.
Do whatever. Yeah, do like in this thing right now. I'm in like a 1 bedroom apartment, and I've got all these. Can't really see it because it's stuck to the camera, but I mean it's up on ceiling. So like I hung some moving blankets from the ceiling, two moving blankets, and I cut off like a rectangle, and I've got these on, this wall, that wall, above me, behind me, and then on the moving blanket, it's held up by like stools and tripods and safety pins. But I've got my own little block in here with a bunch of lights. If you just look at it, like if that camera shuts out and you see this, well, here's a fire extinguisher because I don't know if this shit's gonna
Yeah, I
go on
was wondering
fire.
what that was.
Yeah, yeah, these are fireproof, but the moving blankets are not. And so I'm like, I have that in here just in case I got to put out a fire. But you build this, but even this is imagination. I mean, I was pre-med. I was the most straight-laced. I was like a wild child. I was always in trouble at bad grades. Then I turned to the most straight-laced, sober, saving money, working out. I'm going to be a doctor. And then actually before I lost my brother, the day I graduated was the first day, or the day after I graduated college was the first day I ever took psychedelic mushrooms. And it wasn't at a festival. It was out in the woods with my best friend. And we just went out, and I was like, oh, wait. I was like, why can't your mind blossom into something beautiful? Like it doesn't have to all be just like we talked earlier about being strong and resilient doesn't mean that you're Tarzan. It also means that you can open your heart and talk about love and vulnerability. I was like,
Yeah,
wait, imagination doesn't have to be something that's, oh, you're a hippie. I was like, why can't I make money doing this? And
yeah,
yeah, it's as you build your own thing, like you see how valuable, I mean, literally monetarily, this podcast has made me money. So I'm like, imagination's not just like a good trait. It's
no,
actually built my life. It pays for
yeah.
my water
Yeah,
and my
and it's
groceries.
actually at the root of every single significant human development throughout history,
Literally
whether it
everything.
be the creation of writing or music or the arts or science or in where you're sitting right now, the chair that you're sitting on will have begun in somebody's imagination, the
Yeah.
t-shirt that you're wearing, the same thing, all of it has begun in the imagination
Yeah.
of the maker or the designer, or even societal structures
Everything.
have begun in the imagination. So I call it our superpower.
Yeah.
But it is the very thing that gets demonized as children grow up. So it'll be like, oh, get your head out of the clouds. Playing is a waste of time. Curiosity killed the cat. I mean, what a dreadful statement that is. It's like being curious about things is somehow dangerous. Well, of course, adults will say those sorts of things, usually well-intentioned, because they were like, oh, well, I don't want you to make the same mistakes that I made, or whatever it might be. But actually, all it is it's actually eroding the very natural gifts that children already have. So I advocate that we allow children to be in nature as much as possible. They should be climbing trees. They should be like exploring. Bearing in mind kids are brilliant at going off the beaten track and
Yeah.
finding new things and stuff. And from an adult perspective, whether it's an adult family member like parent or whatever, or teacher, go with them on their journeys. Don't micromanage them, but go with them on their journeys, and they will take you
I'll
to
teach you.
absolutely magical lands. I mean, you talk about like mushrooms, kids hanging out with like little kids for a
That is
day is
psychedelic.
yeah, it's totally psychedelic, and they're tuned into such magic and wonder. And I just feel like we need to cherish that, because what the way that the system is going, and we can see that very, very clearly with all of the COVID restrictions and all of this kind of weird stuff about censorship and control, is they don't want people to be imaginative. They do not want there to be rebels in society who ask questions and who are kind of critical thinkers and go, well, why do I have to do that? That doesn't make sense. They
Yeah.
don't want that. They just want you to obey and to be conformist. And that's the exact opposite of what we need to do.
I think one of the wild cards, and I might be wrong, but I think one of the wild cards we're gonna see is like a revival of psychedelics. They never went away, but I mean, like in comparison to the '60s. And actually, I just got me thinking. Right, for like the last 10, 15 years, they've been doing research at Johns Hopkins and Harvard, MDMA, psilocybin, LSD, ketamine, all these things for anxiety and PTSD for soldiers.
MDMA for PTSD. That's
Yeah.
very
They do a ton
powerful.
of them for depression, addiction.
Mm.
Got me thinking. Maybe they're like unintentionally building the own noose that hangs them. If they're pushing on everyone that you're anxious and you need to deal with your anxiety, the evolution might turn from Xanax to like psilocybin, and then all of a sudden, the people who they almost had cornered get reset and turn
Yeah,
into like children. Like, why are we marching towards dystopia?
yeah,
Who knows? Maybe it'll be like an 11th hour, like they're about to sedate the masses. What Aldous Huxley, Soma, right? Brave New World. Maybe the final play is like, we're gonna sedate him with something stronger than Xanax. We've been doing studies with psilocybin, and then you just revert to the childlike. I don't want to eat the bugs, Klaus. I don't want to do this. Like, who knows?
yeah.
I'm I'm
Certainly,
I'm
I think there's
optimistic.
you kind of have like cultural revolutions in response to restrictive
Yeah.
times. So throughout history and in different areas of the world, when there's been and the 60s is a classic example
Right
where
after World War
you know
II.
yeah after World War II, there's a lot of kind of like boring kind of stuff happening, and people start to and a bit of kind of restriction. People start to kind of go, the young in particular, start go, hey, I want to kind of like do something differently. I want to
Yeah.
kind of expand, and then of course then embracing psychedelics, whether it's in the form of acid or mushrooms or whatever, and then the creativity that kind of comes from that. I think naturally that is something that happens within these sorts of times, because it's a response to restriction.
It's the
It's like there's
pendulum.
the psychedelic state of consciousness is it's been described quite beautifully by Ramdas.
I love Ram Dass.
Yeah, isn't
He,
he
he
also?
he died like a
Lovely
week before I
man.
started my
So,
podcast. I was so upset. I love him. I
were
wanted to get him.
you?
Yeah. I love. I
Oh,
discovered
that's
Ram
such a
Dass
great.
like a couple months after my brother died, and like when I
Mm.
first started the podcast, I was like, I'm gonna get him on. He's still alive, and then he died. Sorry, I
Yeah, I
interrupted you.
know.
What were you
No,
saying?
I mean, such a beautiful character. So I was listening to him in the 90s on cassette tapes, and there's those sort of classic talks that he does, and some of them are about his early experiences of
Yeah.
mushrooms when he was at Harvard,
Yeah.
and then meeting Timothy Leary and that
Uh
kind
huh.
of stuff. And it's like, phenomenal stuff. But he talks about these sorts of experiences, which are also accessible through meditation and
Hmm.
lots of different other ways, of the lotus flower unfolding. And when you open your mind and the flowers unfold, when they begin to go back again, they never go back quite as much as they did before. And then the next time you open, it's that
A
bit
little
more,
more.
and then it goes back. And so you're constantly having that opening like that. And it's the way he describes it. It's so
He's
brilliant in his wonderfully humble and humorous way as well. Because I love the way he like takes the piss out of himself as
he.
well. It's
Oh, I
like
love it.
just real, just
I'm
real.
so consciously and unconsciously like inspired and like mimic
Yeah.
him. He's always like shooting himself down. Like
Yeah.
he'll be like, I'm sitting there meditating holy with light coming out of my forehead. And he was bisexual and was like, and then I'll
Yeah.
see a beautiful man and instantly I forget all the Buddha shit. And I'm like, hey, I'm Ram Dass. Do you want to come hang out?
Yeah.
And he's like,
Yeah.
5 minutes ago, I would have nailed me to the wall. And now he's like, and now I'm trying to have a threesome. And then that night I'm back to medit. And it's just like
Yeah.
he just kicks himself
It's
down.
real. He's real.
God,
He
he's
was
the
just
best.
real, and so beautiful with it.
He
And yeah, I mean,
yeah,
there's and with a lot of mystery as well, because it's like with Ramdas, he'd never really it was not like this is it. It's like there's a lot of room for interpretation as well,
yeah.
and I think that's why he so beautifully says, that kind of thing where it's like when it's like when you think you've got it, and you think you're that, and you think you're like spiritual, you can now tell people about this stuff. It's like, all right, you definitely aren't
You
there.
definitely do not have,
It's
yeah, no,
like-
he's right because he goes through the whole like learning about it through LSD, and then eventually you do come down, and he kept trying to stay. I think he talked about like him and Leary taking LSD every 6 hours for 30 days. He's like, eventually you come down, and so then he goes on the whole meditation saga out to like the Himalayas, right, where he meets Neem Karoli Baba, his guru, and then he does this interview like 30 years later. I think it was like post stroke when he was talking a lot slower. And he's like 80 at the time. Someone goes, you realized early on that it wasn't psychedelics, that it was meditation and guru and walking the straight path and going on these journeys and fasting. And he's like, that is what worked, right? And you just see him. It's, he's got the beads and the beard, and he goes, in hindsight, I think that was all kind of bullshit too. And everyone in the crowd goes, and he goes, I don't know. He goes, it might be LSD, it might be fasting. He goes, I still don't understand. Everybody's like, what? He goes, y'all
So
are here to
cool.
get answers from me. I'm hoping y'all have the answers. And he's just like,
So cool.
I
So
still
cool.
don't know what's going
So
on.
true. So true. It's just true. It's just real.
You have no idea. Yeah, the lotus, he talks about the phony. He goes, there's the phony holy. He goes, and then there's the phony unholy. Because once you wake up, you can never quite go back to sleep. He goes, you'll try. You'll have an affair. You'll buy a convertible. You'll go bowling. But deep down inside, you go, I don't care about bowling. He goes, you can never quite go back to sleep. He goes, but you'll wake up. And yeah, that I know I gotta let you go. I know it's late your time. But he talks about like not long after my brother died, so I went back to college for another semester. I decided I didn't want to do medical school. I wanted to do pharmacy school. And so I had to go take some courses. So I like went back and enrolled. And me and a buddy from high school got a place together. And we had an attic in this old house in Georgia. And a third of our buddies, actually a mutual friend of ours, made like tie-dye tapestries out of bed sheets. And so he made us a ton of them. He kind of just gave them to us for free. We just gave him a bunch of pot. And we built this room in this attic, this old creaky attic. And we called it the Zen Den because it was ceiling, floors, walls. I mean, 360 degrees, just psychedelic, like Christmas lights, like a disco ball, Buddha, incense. And like downstairs, we would go out of our way to make it the most boring vanilla house. Just like, all the pictures were hung perfect. It was like an inside joke. It just looked like the house of like a curmudgeon old man. It was just, everything was neat and prim and perfect. And then we had this little tiny closet door that you'd go up, and you go up in the attic, and then you'd part these things, and you walked in to an acid trip. And we used to listen to Ram. That's
So
where we
would you
discovered
go
Ram.
kind of get people wasted downstairs and then take them
Always,
up?
always. It was, they'd see the house, and then we'd be like, you guys want to, and it was only half the attic. So the thing is, we take people up the
Brilliant.
creepy stairs to the
Yeah,
attic, and there's
yeah.
insulation on the walls, and then you see the first part of the attic, and there's just like nails and wires, and they're like, are you gonna like murder me? And then you just see one slit of light coming through, and you'd be like, go forth. And you'd go open, everybody be shit faced, and you'd open it up, and it was just like this twinkling magical, and you go up there, and like everyone would sit down and be like, what is this?
Yeah.
And we turn on Ram Dass, and you'd hear him talk
Brilliant.
about his first psychedelic trip, and he like with Timothy Leary, and he'd be like, he's like, one night we took like psychedelics, and he's like, and I'm sitting there, and I'm like watching myself disappear, and in a moment of terror, realizing that I was not a teacher, I was not a professor, I was not a lover, I was not a cellist, I was not a pilot. What am I? I'm nothing at all. He's like, and then I looked down, he goes, and at least I have my body. And then I looked down, and I saw my feet disappearing and my legs disappearing. And he goes, and I started to lose my mind as it went up, and then I disappeared. And then it dawned on me, who's minding the store? What is this? I thought I was gone. And he goes, and that's when I discovered that I am always here, that I am beyond it all. And I think he said he'd never been truly scared from that day forward.
Yeah, that's beautifully remembered, by the way.
Yeah.
So I haven't heard that one for a while, but that's almost word for word.
I love that one. Who's minding the store?
Perfect.
I love that one so much. And you just hear him, he's just walking you through it. Yeah, and he goes home, and he's snowing outside, and I think he lived with his parents at the time, and he goes and he shovels the driveway at like 5 a.m. just in bliss, His dad looks out the window and he goes, "The hell are you doing? No one shovels snow at 5 a.m." And he looks up at him and he goes, "It's okay to shovel snow and it's okay to be happy." And I always think about that. Like, it doesn't need to make sense. That was my Reddit username for it before I got banned. The shovel snow, be happy.
Oh, really? Inspired by that?
Oh yeah, shovel snow, be happy. That was my username on
Oh,
Reddit. I got
amazing.
banned, but I always
Yeah.
look back to it's okay to be shovel snow, and it's okay to be happy. And to me, when it seems like they're vaccinating everyone and people are having heart attacks and they're censoring and they want less, less energy for everyone and they want to reduce the population, these people are just demons. And I tell myself, no, it's going to get better. Like the little voice is like, it's okay to be happy. It's okay to podcast and it's okay to be happy. Like, I don't, maybe it all does go away and then you
Right.
die.
Well, that's
What
the other whole another bit, isn't it? It's like the mystery of
what is it all?
death, and that's and so I mean, I've had a number of very close deaths, and with each one, the mystery has expanded. I've known less about, oh, this is what it's all about, and I'm beginning to get to that point where I'm sort of comfortable with that mystery,
Yeah.
and I also use it as a kind of um, something to compare life with. So something you said earlier about, when making a stand, etc., and just saying, well, remember that you are going to die. That's going to happen. And it's like when you kind of think about that, and I do think about death on a daily
Every
basis,
day.
that the mystery of it, the magic of it, the fact that it's just so there. It's like
What is
there, even though it's like closeted and twisted by our contemporary culture. It's like it's there, and it's I feel that as well is something that kind of motivates me to do what I'm doing whilst I'm embodied. It certainly does, and I'm sensing that's what it's the same with you.
Hell yeah. Whenever you ever have a dream or something where like, well, you're married, so I don't know if you ever have a dream and it's like you're just talking to like a girl you have a crush on or something, or you're reliving like a high school moment and like for whatever reason, like you don't ask her out and then you wake up. But waking up is death to the dream. And you
Mm.
wake up and you go, why did why didn't I do that? Why didn't I ask her out? Or I'm in the dream and I'm like, why didn't I do whatever? How come I didn't do the brave thing? That to me is like, I do not want to wake up from this and be like, I can't believe I got banned from Twitter and then I said sorry and went along with the play. It's
Yeah,
just a
yeah,
dream.
good analogy. Good
Yeah,
analogy.
yeah. But I kept you 30 minutes longer than I said I would. Dude, let's
No,
dive
it's been,
into another episode. Let's go down the rabbit hole on Ram Dass and UFOs and
yeah.
Alan Watts, Terrence McKenna.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah,
Again,
let's
Alan Watts, next level.
dude.
He's oh no, Terence McKenna, there's a thing that he said, his line is like, nobody knows anything. It's like, wow. I quite often I'll say that to myself. It's like nobody knows anything. It's like, wow, that's quite a liberating
Oh yeah.
statement. It's like, it's I mean, we could go, yeah, we could
Dude,
continue
he,
and you're sparking a lot of different
dude,
thoughts in my mind now. But
Terrence McKenna's got a great one where he goes, "We have this idea that we figure it all out at the end, and all the loose ends get tied." He goes, "What enlightenment is realizing that you just sit with the messiness. You die with a lot of unanswered questions." You're like, "I think my parents loved me. They probably did." You're like, "Yeah, I think I was a good person. I never did get to see that. I always thought we'd maybe bury the hatchet, but he died and I never got to say sorry." He's like, "You just kinda you never find out who whacked Kennedy." He goes, "You just get to the end and you go, huh." And that is enlightenment, is going, I have no idea what it is. And then lastly, yeah, we'll go on Alan Watts. And it's something I heard like right after I took psychedelics. Like it was like the next day. And it was the what would you do? What would God do if he got what was it? What would God do if he was bored? What if God got bored? And and this is the last thing, and I promise I'll let you go. And
this sounds like a Bill Hicks quote coming up.
no, not quite Bill Hicks. Although I found out I went to college my first 2 years in Valdosta, Georgia, tiny little town in southern Georgia, and that's where I discovered Bill Hicks. And then I found out that's where he was born. This is all
Yeah,
up to
amazing.
Georgia. And then I found out the day I took psychedelics was actually, I think it was his birthday. So I always felt connected with Bill Hicks. But
Yeah.
Alan Watts goes, to me, this one always trumps everything else in terms of it just makes me like stand still. And he goes, I wonder, what would you do if God got bored? What if you were God? Well, you could dream you could dream any dream you wanted to dream. And every night we'll say 8 hours of sleep is 80 years of life, or whatever interval you want. What's the first thing you do? It would be all pleasure, just sex. It would just be endless sex. The next one might be some food and sex. The next one after that might be some drugs, food, and sex. You go through pleasures and you do that every night, 80 years a night, I don't know, for a year, which is already just what, 360 lifetimes? He goes, and then you'd get into just a little more beauty. You would see the most beautiful songs, the most beautiful gardens, things like Roman Empire or Babylon, just breathtaking. You'd watch Da Vinci paint. You go through all these things, and then you maybe get a little ego in there. Then you'd be like, well, now I want to be the artist. Now I want to be John Lennon. Now I want to be Jimi Hendrix. And you'd do all those. You'd be the holy man. You'd be Jesus. You'd be Buddha. And then you'd get a little daring. And then you'd be like, I want to fight the dragon. I want to storm the beaches on D-Day. I want to go over I want to be the bagpipe guy going over the wall. And he goes, and they'd be terrifying. And then you might even want to be evil. You might be the dictator. And he goes, but eventually, like, the adrenaline will pull you in fighting these bad people, these monsters. And then you'd eventually start to incorporate actual pain. And then that would get scary. He goes, and then he goes, like children daring each other, you'd push it a little further. And then you would start to suspend your powers. You'd suspend your power of waking up, knowing that you just had to go 80 years. And that would start to really get scary. You'd actually have to start taking care of yourself. You know, you don't want to drown. You don't want to get captured and tortured. And then you go a little farther. And just for brief moments, maybe every other day, you forget that you're dreaming. And then it would come back and you'd go, oh my God. And you know that tomorrow you're going to forget again. It's okay, because eventually this 80 years will end and you'd wake up and you go, dude, that was terrifying. And then eventually you'd start to go in, because you're the one planning it. You're God. There's nothing else in existence. It's just you. So you'd know that you wake up after 80 years. So then you'd go, what if I forgot I was dreaming at all? And then you'd be anxious and you'd be terrified and you wouldn't know what death is. And then you'd wake up and for the first time you get to experience unbounded bliss and being the creator. And he goes, and then you'd keep doing that. And that would be after you've done everything, 80 years a night for centuries, eventually you would dream where you are right now. And that one, I've heard it 1,000 times. What would you do? What would God do if you got bored?
Amazing. So I could see where that was going. It's
So
like,
yeah, no, you can see it a mile away.
It's us. I'm God.
What would you
That's
do?
it. With all of those layers, all of that. I love that. The journey of that, including the forgetting that you're God. You know, it's like that's
when
that's
you wake up, it'll be so great.
And who was that? Alan Watts.
That's Alan Watts. That's the first thing I ever heard. So what would you eventually do? I don't know. Maybe I'd be building a podcast in my apartment, talking to Dr. McCullough and talking to Mike, and we're kind of scared. We're like, is it the end of the world? Are they going to throw us in a gulag? Because it would be so great when you woke up. To me, that one always just like, it's like cold water in the face.
Yeah, and ultimately that message again is it's about, like, you know, we've got everything within us right now. Yeah. For our entire incarnation, and we are that God spark. Granddad talks about that.
Yeah.
With
the Godhead.
Yeah. But it's like, rather than outsourcing our power to others, outsourcing our decisions to others, to realize that, you know, everything from the stuff that you do that's not great to the stuff that you do that's okay to the stuff that you do that's brilliant. It's like, it's you. And it's like, you know, that is the empowerment, that to know that we've got everything within us right now. That's the key thing. And I love the magic of that. I'm going to try and find that.
I'll email to you right now.
Could you please?
Yeah, dude, I'll send you a couple of emails.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah. Oh, this is great. Okay, awesome.
Well, this is your, you got to go start your podcast, man. This was your divine intervention. This is Ram Dass speaking through me. This is the guru coming to you. This is Ram Dass will talk about. He's like, when someone hits the brakes in front of you, he goes, that's not a bad driver. that's God reminding you to have patience. He goes, that's God reminding. And when you see the sirens behind you, he goes, that's not fear. That's God teaching you to be courageous. He was like, everything's a lesson. So I don't know. This is your, I guess this is your spark to start your podcast. I don't know.
Thank you so much for this chat today, Tommy.
That was
Really
awesome.
cool.
That was
Really
I thoroughly enjoyed that, man. That's why I do this. I always have these where I remember. I'm like, and that's what I mean when I say I never stop having these. The first half can be this like very serious conversation about
Yeah,
censorship.
yeah.
We'll just
And
go
then
over the
go,
waterfall of Terrence McKenna, just free falling psychedelics.
cool.
Like, I don't give a
Yeah,
shit. I don't give a shit.
love it.
Dude,
Thank
thank you
you.
so much. I'll email you. Send me the links to your books. I'll put them in the description, or if you got a website
Okay,
or whatever. Right now, I will email you that Alan Watts link, and
thank you.
let's definitely schedule another one. I'd love to shoot the shit with you. You're a cool guy.
100%. Yeah, thank you so much, Tommy.
Yeah, man. Hell
Lots
yeah.
of love to you, mate.
Much
Really
love to you
cool.
too, brother. Thank you so much. It was so great to meet you. Take
You
care.
too.